Hey everyone, Gill here. There is news. The 2020 US Open entry list has been released, and Rafael Nadal is by far the most notable absence on the list. He will not be playing the 2020 US Open. So I'll get to Nadal. He's released a statement on his Instagram and Twitter accounts. I will read it shortly, but first, here is the field. All in all, most players playing. As you can see, the cut is 127. Remember, there are 104 direct entries in a major tournament, which means you can do the math, but a little bit over 20 players in the rankings are either injured or have decided not to play. Among the notables, Nadal, Federer, Monfils, Fanini, Wawrinka, Kyrgios, Tsonga, Pouille, Herbert. I know that Pouille is injured. We know that Federer is injured. And then a couple of protected rankings getting in: Mackie McDonald, Jack Sock. Would that be Yen Shen Liu? But anyway, really, as I expected, a pretty strong field. I saw somewhere, do not quote me on this, I haven't confirmed it. I haven't independently verified it myself. But I saw somewhere that 90 out of the top 100 are in the entry list. So the U.S. Open is getting a pretty decent field here. But indeed, the defending champion Rafael Nadal has decided not to travel. This was his statement. Quote, "After many thoughts, I have decided not to play this year's U.S. Open. The situation is very complicated worldwide. The COVID-19 cases are increasing. It looks like we still don't have control of it. We know that the reduced tennis calendar is barbaric this year after 4 months stopped with no play. I understand and thank for the efforts they are putting in to make it happen. We have just seen the announcement of Madrid not being played this year. All my respects to the USTA, the US Open organizers, and the ATP for trying to put the event together for the players and the fans around the world through TV. This is a decision I never wanted to take, but I have decided to follow my heart at this time, and for the time being, I rather not travel." Millions of people around the world right now aren't comfortable traveling, and Rafael Nadal is in that camp. This will be my blanket take for all athletes during this time. To each their own. I have absolutely no interest in discussing athletes' individual choices here. I find it completely useless to discuss individual decisions. To each their own, and no ifs, ands, or buts when it comes to that. I will say that I think the move might be for the best for Nadal. I will say that I think that the schedule that is on the table was possibly not wise for Nadal to put his body through and to put his knees through. And I will take this time to just kind of recap Nadal's injury history, because I recently looked into it because I was interested in this very topic. Of course, it is in the statement. He says that he does mention the calendar, and he uses the word barbaric. I don't think that's the word he was looking for. I believe that's lost in translation. But, outrageous, insane, I think that's kind of what he was saying, that the calendar is so jam-packed in that it was arguably not wise to play all these events, even if he was comfortable traveling. Now, he's saying he's not comfortable traveling. I'm not going to parse that or question that, but I do think it's worthwhile taking this time to go back and look back at his injury history, because I do think that the patterns are rather interesting. It goes back to 2004. It's actually the only time that he missed a French Open, that he did not enter in the French Open in his career. He had a stress fracture in his ankle that forced him to miss the French Open. But keep in mind, after this point, keep in mind what tournaments he's missing. Keep in mind what tournaments are forcing Rafa to miss time, to withdraw, etc. 2005, his plantar fasciitis comes back in his foot. And at this point, a doctor actually tells him that he may not be able to play tennis ever again. That doctor was wrong. But he had to miss Masters Cup, and he missed the 2006 Australian Open with that foot problem. 2009 is the first time we see his knee tendonitis come up, and is that before Wimbledon? During Wimbledon? It's before Wimbledon. Yes, right. He can't defend his title after winning in 2008. He has to withdraw before Wimbledon with the knee tendonitis. Now, ever since 2009, that knee has been an issue. But keep in mind when it is becoming an issue. In 2012, he loses to Lucas Rosol at Wimbledon, and clearly he was battling that same thing, that knee tendonitis. He does not play another match in 2012 after that loss to Rosol. Fast forward to 2018, he retires at the Australian Open in the quarterfinal because of knee issues. Then he wins Toronto, but has to retire again at the U.S. Open because of the knee problems. That was a really bad year for his knee. And if you actually look at his hard court entries heading into the 2019 Australian Open, if you look at every hard court tournament that Nadal entered in, he had only completed one of them, which was Toronto. So some of them he had withdrawn before the tournament, some he had retired during the tournament, but that was the most alarming stretch of Nadal's career when it came to how his knees were behaving on hard courts specifically. Then in 2019, he had to withdraw before the semifinals at Indian Wells. He comes back and works his way back into health for the clay court season. So look at the numbers here. Look at the pattern. Australian Open, he misses it in 2006 and 2013. He loses to Ferrer in 2011, injured in that match. But that was an abdominal injury. Loses to Wawrinka in the 2014 final with the back injury that he was battling. So you look at overall his health at the Australian Open, not very good. Wimbledon, misses 2009 for the knee. Misses 2016, the knee. U.S. Open, 2012, he misses it. 2014, he misses it. French Open. Nadal hasn't been injured heading into the French Open, clay court tennis, before the French Open, since 2004. The one time he had to pull out in 2016, to me, that's just a fluke. It's his wrist. He's never injured. I think it was his left wrist, but I'm almost certain, but it could have been his right wrist because I didn't even look, and I don't have that written down here. But it's a wrist injury, not a knee injury, not an ankle injury, not a leg injury. So that has nothing to do with what surface you play on. That's just a freak injury. All of the knee tendonitis issues that he's had, it's all been on hard courts. So if Rafa is going to play this jam-packed schedule, it's probably best for him to limit himself to clay, especially after the ultra-long layoff. I do believe we are going to see more injuries than we're used to here. I'm willing to bet that more players retire here because of the lack of match play. And I know you might think that players are fresh, but there's a difference. You know, fresh is good, but when you're not really used to to a certain intensity, and suddenly you have to ramp it up to that intensity, and it's very hard to simulate a major best of 5 tennis every other day. Match intensity, you can't really simulate in practice. You can't simulate that in the gym either. Once you ramp it up to an intensity that your body isn't used to, that's where you're going to get injured more. So I don't think it's a big loss that he's not playing the U.S. Open. I do think with the way the schedule is packed, if he's going to play tons of tennis in a short period of time, it best be on clay courts. That's kind of my takeaway from that. Of course, a loss from tennis for tennis, the fact that he's not in the field, but nothing. Of course, we can do about that. And that's not really what's most important. I do wonder if part of the reasoning is protecting his body, and we'll see when he's in the press conference setting and people ask him about that. We'll see how he responds, and I will be listening carefully because I am curious to see if that was any part of this decision. Although it is completely within the realm of possibility that he just doesn't feel comfortable getting on a plane right now. Again, just like so many other people are not comfortable getting on a plane right now. But besides Nadal, U.S. Open field, it's pretty strong. So we'll keep an eye on that. Oh, last point I want to make. This is an important point. I meant to make it at the beginning of this. The entry list is not an end-all, be-all. Not the case whatsoever. The U.S. Open is still negotiating, is still talking with the EU, trying to give players a definitive answer on whether or not they can travel back from the United States to Europe without having to quarantine. That is still essential. The U.S. Open is not out of the woods yet at all. It's going to be up to that variable. Do players have to quarantine? Is the EU going to exempt athletes from the United States travel ban that is currently in place? If they do not, you will see many players in this entry list withdraw. So this is not over yet. But Nadal's name is out of the hat for good, no matter what. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.